Music Camp 1987, and this guy was there, and we had our first crush on each other.
I was too shy to tell her that I liked her, so I sent someone
down the hill as we were leaving camp.
Yeah, it's the last day of camp. I sent someone down to say that I liked her.
And then, what, 11 years later, we got married in the chapel.
He'd take the pot down, or the roaster down, and he'd blow in it to try and get most of the spider webs out. And then he'd put the roast in, stick it in the oven, and us girls would see this. We would pull the roaster out, wash the roaster, and put the roast back in the oven.
We used potato stamps and made these cool Millennium banners in the gazebo.
And somehow the hill seems to be getting steeper and higher all the time.
Have family times together here through the generations. My kids came as young ones, and now they're working on staff, and I had a blessing to be able to come and be a part of the camp through my childhood too, and it has a huge ministry.
And I'm pretty sure it was about 56 hours without power we had. We had no showers and no light and all that, and the kitchen was just running on generators, but it was still so much fun just being outside in the pouring rain, playing ultimate frisbee, and I remember showering in the eaves trough from the downpour, and it was just a really good time to experience camp.
My grandpa was very instrumental at the beginning of this camp. I found him on the picture 1940, and he was here, and he was very instrumental in helping to start this camp.
I decided this would be not only a perfect place to get married, but the perfect place to propose. And so my last summer during teen camp, I proposed to Bethany in the talent show.
Here in Kinasao, it's such a holy place, and I was undergoing chemo and radiation treatments, and I started coming here to church, and it gave me the hope in being successful at fighting cancer. And as soon as I would walk in the door, it would give me the strength.
A river float. And so we got a series of large inner tubes, and there were rafts that were put on top of these tubes, and the whole thing was all roped together, and we set down on, I think it was the bridge that goes up to Blaine Lake. And the idea was we were going to float down the river starting on Sunday afternoon and get there on Friday. Things did not go anywhere near according to plan.
And on the way back, he said, let's do John 3:16. And when we get to whoever, put your name in there. So we started reciting John 3:16. For God so loved the world that Alice, who believes in him, will not perish but have everlasting life.
And by the end of the worship night, probably 75 to 90% of the kids were still in the chapel wanting to pray with staff members and wanting to hear more and worship more, and just they were so on fire for the Lord, and that was just an incredible moment.
So all this time I was sustained by those turbulent waters on Otter Rapids the summer before, that there is a way through all these things, and by the grace and mercy of God we did make it through.
Drew decided to hide in the freezer with a large whipped cream pie. And then we called in the maintenance guy, specifically Carter, because we said, oh, we found some popsicles in the freezer, so if you want to just go to the back freezer and grab some, go ahead. And so Carter comes in, opens up the freezer, and Drew puts the pie into his face.
My first time here as a youth camper, and meeting a whole bunch of really hilarious people who all lived really far away that I got to see each summer, and then eventually coming back and working with them on staff.
I've been at the camp here since the early 1960s. We started initially by tenting on the great lawn in front of the retreat center, and many times we remember the rain running through our tents.
I remembered some of the things that I was taught when I was a child and some things that I had learned at Kinasao, and that was to pray when we were in trouble. And so I said, hey Sarah, you know what, let's pray, because God will look after us and he'll help us. So I said a short little prayer with Sarah, and we prayed that God would protect us and send someone to come and find us. And believe it or not, someone did come and find us, and I just remember that being a very precious moment.
I think that's camp is all about trusting God, and sometimes it's hard, and he'll be there for us.
This one night in particular, it was in August, and it was just so clear, and we all went out and we went onto the lake, and so we pulled out canoes, we paddled to the middle of the lake, and it was just like glass, and we just sang together out there and just watched the stars and had communion.
I was taken with the big, large cross at the front of the chapel. The colored glass picked up the sun in the west for the evening service. Across the front were the words, "We would see Jesus." It seemed to be the theme.
We took pictures with our film cameras of the roots actually being ripped out of the ground.
There were a lot of kids in the chapel singing, playing their instruments, and learning new music. And by Friday night, we had an amazing musical.
I love camp. There are just millions of stories. How do you even fit them all into something like this?